Imagine fighting the world's most powerful army with fewer soldiers, older weapons, and almost no chance of winning. Yet, somehow, you survive, not because you're stronger, not because you're smarter, but because a mountain, a river, or even a freezing winter fought on your side. Throughout history, generals have planned wars, politicians have declared them, but in the end, there's one force that has defeated more armies than any weapon ever created: geography. When most people think about war, they think about tanks, fighter jets, missiles, and massive armies. But behind every famous victory, there's usually something much quieter, something impossible to negotiate with: the land itself, the shape of mountains, the depth of oceans, the width of rivers, the deserts that stretch for hundreds of miles, and the freezing winters that don't care which flag you're fighting for. History keeps repeating the same lesson. Technology changes, weapons evolve, empires rise and fall, but geography keeps making the final decision. And once you see it, you'll never look at world maps the same way again. Every war actually begins long before the first bullet is fired. It begins on a map. Military commanders spend months studying terrain before they study the enemy, because terrain decides almost everything: where soldiers can move, where tanks get stuck, where supplies can arrive, and where entire armies can disappear. Imagine trying to invade a country protected by enormous mountain ranges. Every narrow pass becomes a trap. Every cliff becomes a sniper position. Every valley becomes an ambush waiting to happen. Now imagine crossing a scorching desert. You aren't just fighting enemy soldiers. You're fighting thirst, heat, fatigue, and thousands of miles without enough food or fuel. The enemy doesn't even need to attack. Sometimes, nature does the job for them. History is filled with armies that underestimated geography. Napoleon marched into Russia with one of the greatest armies Europe had ever seen. He expected a quick victory. Instead, he found endless distances, burned villages, empty food supplies, and one of the harshest winters on Earth. The battlefield wasn't won by Russian bullets alone. The freezing landscape destroyed an empire. More than a century later, Adolf Hitler made almost the exact same mistake. Despite thousands of tanks and millions of soldiers, Germany couldn't defeat Russia's enormous size, brutal weather, and impossible supply lines. The deeper an army moves into hostile territory, the weaker it becomes. Every mile stretches supply lines. Every bridge becomes a target. Every road becomes another problem to protect. Sometimes, the farther you advance, the closer you are to defeat. Geography doesn't just decide battles. It decides which nations become global powers. Look at countries surrounded by oceans. Water acts like a natural defensive wall. Invading them becomes incredibly expensive. Now look at countries with major rivers and deep natural ports. Trade becomes easier. Economies grow faster. Navies become stronger. Even today, the world's biggest powers aren't powerful by accident. Many were simply born in places that gave them incredible geographic advantages. Wide coastlines, navigable rivers, natural resources, defensive borders. Meanwhile, other nations spend generations overcoming mountains, deserts, frozen landscapes, or difficult neighbors. Some countries inherit opportunity. Others inherit obstacles. We often celebrate brilliant generals, powerful weapons, and historic victories. But beneath every military strategy lies a much older force, one that cannot be bribed, cannot be threatened, and cannot be defeated. Geography doesn't care about politics. It doesn't care about technology. It doesn't care who believes they're destined to win. It simply rewards those who understand it and punishes those who ignore it. So the next time you look at a world map, don't just see countries. See mountains protecting civilizations, rivers creating empires, oceans defending continents. Because in the end, wars are fought by people, but they're often won by the land beneath their feet. If you found this perspective fascinating, subscribe for more documentaries that reveal the hidden forces shaping our world.